She pulled a bleeding stranger from the subway track seconds before a speeding train arrived, not knowing the man she saved is the most dangerous mafia boss in the city. Vivian Williams' fingers were slick with blood, his, not hers, as she gripped the stranger's collar. The 2:47 a.m. train's headlight exploded around the tunnel curve, its horn screaming a warning that came too late. "Let me go," the man shouted, his accented voice cutting through the roar. "You'll die with me." "Not happening," Vivian gasped, her server's uniform already torn at the shoulder as she wrenched backward with everything she had. Her cheap work shoes skidded on the platform edge, but she didn't let go. Because that's what Vivian Williams did. She didn't quit. She didn't let people fall. Not on her watch. The train's wind hit them like a wall as they crashed onto the concrete, both alive, both changed forever. Before we dive into what happens next, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from, because this story about a waitress who saved a stranger's life is about to take you on a journey you won't forget. And if you're the kind of person who believes in second chances and love that defies the odds, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see how this impossible love story unfolds. Vivian was refilling the ketchup bottles when Shanice grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. "Girl, don't look now." But 3 men in suits just walked in, and they look like they're here to collect somebody's soul. Vivian looked. The man from the subway stood in the doorway of Big Al's diner like he owned it, which, given the tailored black suit that probably cost more than her rent, he might as well have. The gash on his temple had been reduced to a neat line of surgical glue. His dark hair was perfectly styled. 2 massive men flanked him like marble statues in expensive wool. Their eyes met across the diner. He smiled, not the grateful smile of someone whose life had been saved, but something more dangerous, more certain. "Miss William," he said, approaching her station with measured steps, his accent wrapped around her name like silk. "I hoped I would find you here. How did you— Your name tag. Last night." He gestured to the empty booth by the window. "May we speak?" Shanice was making frantic, "call the police" gestures behind the coffee machine. Vivian should have been scared. Instead, she felt that same pull she'd felt on the platform, the one that made her reach when everyone else would run. "5 minutes," she said. He slid into the booth with the grace of someone used to command. The 2 guards positioned themselves by the door, and every customer in the diner suddenly found reasons to leave. "In my culture," Jin Suk Park began, his hands folded on the table, "there is a concept called unhye. When someone saves your life, a debt is created that can never truly be repaid. The saved belongs to the savior. I don't want anything from you. Nevertheless, you have it. My life, my service, my loyalty." His dark eyes held hers. "I intend to court you properly, Miss William, with respect, with honesty about who and what I am." Shanice dropped an entire tray of glasses. "And what are you exactly?" Vivian asked, though she already knew the answer would change everything. "Someone who keeps his debts," Jin said simply. "Always." Vivian's laptop screen glowed in the darkness of her studio apartment at 3 a.m. She tried to sleep. Failed. Jin Suk Park's words kept circling her mind like sharks. "I intend to court you properly." She typed his name into the search bar. The first result made her stomach drop. "Federal investigation into Baiko syndicate intensifies." Her cursor hovered over the link. She clicked. Jin Suk Park, 34, alleged head of the Baiko organization, one of the most powerful Korean crime syndicates operating in major U.S. cities. Sources say Park controls territory from Seattle to Los Angeles, with suspected involvement in extortion, money laundering, and— Vivian's hands trembled as she scrolled. There were photos Jin at a charity gala, shaking hands with a city councilman. Jin leaving a federal courthouse, flanked by lawyers who probably charged more per hour than she made in a month. Jin at a nightclub opening, surrounded by men whose eyes were dead even when they smiled. She opened another tab. Another article. 3 hospitalized after Koreatown dispute. Baiko connection. Suspected. Then another. Witness recants testimony in Park case. Cites fear for family. And another. And another. By dawn, Vivian had 14 tabs open and a knot of ice in her chest. The man she'd saved wasn't just connected to crime. He was the architect. The commander. The one who gave orders that ended with people in hospitals or worse. She found a grainy surveillance photo from what looked like a warehouse. Jin stood in the center, his face cold and expressionless, while two men knelt before him. The caption speculated about organizational discipline. Vivian closed the laptop and pressed her palms against her eyes. She'd pulled a monster from the tracks, and now he wanted to court her. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Good morning, Miss William. I hope you slept well. A car will arrive at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. Dress comfortably. JSP. She should block the number. Call the police. Run. Instead, she stared at the message until her alarm went off, wondering what kind of woman saves a devil and then agrees to dinner. The black sedan pulled up to a restaurant with no sign, just a red door in a brick building that looked abandoned. Vivian's hand hesitated on the door handle. Miss William, the driver said quietly. Mr. Park is waiting. The restaurant was empty, every table bare except one in the center, where Jin sat alone, candlelight catching the sharp angles of his face. He stood as she entered, and the door locked behind her with a soft click. You came, he said, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. I'm an idiot, Vivian replied. No, you're curious. He gestured to the seat across from him. And honest. I value that. The banchan arrived, small dishes of kimchi, seasoned vegetables, savory pancakes brought by an elderly woman who touched Jin's shoulder with the familiarity of family before disappearing. My aunt, Jin explained, pouring soju into 2 small glasses. One of 3 people in this city I trust completely. And the other 2? The men you met at the diner. They would die for me, have nearly died for me. He raised his glass. To honesty? Vivian didn't drink. I read about you. All night. Every article I could find. And I should be running. You're not just dangerous, you're the danger everyone else runs from. Jin set down his glass. Yes. The simplicity of it shocked her more than any excuse would have. I've ordered violence, he continued, his voice flat and factual. I've protected my people by destroying threats. I walk a line between honor and brutality every day, and some days I fall on the wrong side. He leaned forward. I won't lie to you, Vivian. Not about who I am or what I've done. Then why me? Why this? Because when I was falling, everyone else on that platform froze. You moved. His dark eyes held hers. You saw a man dying, not a monster worth saving. And I've spent 10 years being the monster. You still are? Yes, Jin agreed. But perhaps with you, I could remember the man. Vivian picked up her glass. Her hand only shook a little. One dinner, then we'll see. So Vivian just agreed to give a Mafia boss a chance, one dinner, to see if there's a man beneath the monster. If you're invested in seeing whether she's making the biggest mistake of her life, or the bravest choice she'll ever make, show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing. I see a lot of you watching without subscribing, and honestly, if you've made it this far, you're already hooked. Don't miss what happens when Detective Morris reveals the truth about Jin's real intentions. Vivian was fumbling with her keys when the woman stepped from the shadows beside her apartment door. Miss William, I'm Detective Sarah Morris, Organized Crime Unit. The badge was real. So was the gun holstered at her hip. We need to talk about Jin Suk Park. I have nothing to say. Then just listen. Morris opened a manila folder, revealing an 8x10 photo of a Korean grocery store, its windows shattered, the owner's blood pooling on the floor. Mr. Kim refused to pay protection money. 3 weeks in the hospital. Vivian's stomach turned. Morris flipped to the next photo. A restaurant, burned to the foundation. The Lopez family thought they could sell their business without Baekho approval. Their daughter was inside when the fire started. She survived, barely. Why are you showing me this? Because Jin Suk Park has been under federal investigation for 3 years, and we're close. So close. Morris's eyes were hard. Then suddenly, he's dating you. A waitress from Compton, a black woman working 2 jobs, studying online, exactly the kind of person his organization has been accused of targeting. You think I'm what? A prop? I think you're a very convenient shield. Morris pulled out more papers, witness statements, all with identifying information redacted. 5 complaints about Baekho targeting black-owned businesses in the past 18 months. Now Park is seen in public with you, sends flowers to your diner, plays the devoted boyfriend. It makes him look reformed, inclusive. Not the racist extortionist we know he is. Vivian's voice came out smaller than she wanted. You're saying he doesn't actually want me. I'm saying men like Jin Suk Park don't do anything without strategy. Morris pressed a business card into Vivian's hand. When he shows you who he really is, and he will call me. Testify. Help us put him away before someone else gets hurt. And if I don't? Morris's expression softened, just slightly. Then you're not just a shield, Miss William. You're an accomplice. And when we bring him down, you'll go down with him. She disappeared into the stairwell, leaving Vivian alone with crime scene photos scattered at her feet and doubt poisoning everything Jin had said. Vivian sat on Jin's penthouse balcony, 30 floors above the city, watching him through the glass as he video-called his mother. His entire body language changed, shoulders relaxed, smile genuine, voice soft as he spoke in rapid Korean. When he laughed at something, she said, he looked 10 years younger. He saw Vivian watching and waved her inside. Ioma, this is Vivian, he said, angling the screen. The elderly woman's face lit up, and she spoke quickly, gesturing at the camera. She says you're very beautiful, Jin translated, and asks when I'm bringing you to Seoul. Tell her I said thank you, Vivian managed. After the call ended, Jin pulled her close. In my world, everyone wants something. Money, protection, power. His voice was quiet. You're the first person in 10 years who just wanted to know if I was okay. 2 weeks later, Vivian learned the cost of that world. Stay in the car, Jin said, his voice suddenly empty of warmth. They were parked outside a warehouse in a part of the city where streetlights stayed broken. No matter what you hear. She watched him disappear inside with 3 of his men. Waited. 10 minutes became 20. Then she heard the shouting Korean and English, mixing with sounds she tried not to identify. When Jin returned, his knuckles were split, and there was someone else's blood on his white shirt. He didn't speak during the drive home. Neither did she. That night, in his penthouse with the city glittering below, Jin knelt before her. I won't pretend to be something I'm not, he said. I can't promise you safety or simplicity or a normal life. He opened a small box, revealing a ring that caught the light like trapped fire. But I can promise you truth, loyalty, a love I didn't know I was still capable of feeling. Vivian thought of Detective Morris's warnings. Her grandmother's voice. Baby, some bridges you cross, you can never go back. Yes, she whispered, and let him slide the ring onto her finger. She was crossing the bridge. There was no going back now. Vivian just said yes to a proposal that could destroy her entire future. She's crossing a bridge she can never come back from. If you're feeling the weight of that decision, if you're wondering whether love is worth risking everything, then subscribe, because you need to see what happens when the federal agents come knocking. I've noticed many of you are watching this story without subscribing. If Vivian can risk her whole life for love, surely you can risk one click to stay connected to her journey. The pounding on doors woke Vivian at 5:47 a.m., not her door, but she heard it echoing through the building, urgent and official. She grabbed her phone. 17 missed calls, 23 texts. The news alert flashed across her screen. Federal raid. Baeko syndicate leader Jin Suk Park arrested. Her hands went numb. She ran to the window. 3 blocks away, news helicopters circled Jin's building like vultures. Even from this distance, she could see the flash of police lights, the swarm of federal agents in windbreakers with 3 letters across their backs. Her phone rang. Shanice, girl, turn on the TV. They're saying Vivian. They're saying your man runs the whole operation. Vivian couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She tried Jin's number, straight to voicemail. By 7 a.m., reporters had found her apartment. They camped in the lobby until her landlord, Mr. Chen, called from a number she didn't recognize. Miss William, his voice was apologetic and terrified in equal measure. I need to ask, are you in trouble? With the law? Because I have other tenants to think about. And I haven't done anything wrong. But the man you're engaged to. She hung up. At the diner, Big Al met her at the door. Vivian, sweetheart, maybe you should take some time off. Just until this blows over. I need this job, Al. I know. But look. He gestured to the window where 2 news vans were parking. They're scaring away customers. And corporate called. They're worried about the association. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she'd tried to forget. Detective Morris. 17 counts. Racketeering, extortion, Conspiracy, money laundering. He's looking at decades. Last chance to save yourself, testify, and we'll protect you. Vivian stood in the diner that smelled like coffee and broken dreams, watching her carefully constructed life crumble on every screen. Her culinary school acceptance letter sat at home, the one she'd received last week, the scholarship she'd worked 3 years to earn, all of it dissolving like sugar in rain. Her phone rang again. "Unknown number," she answered. "Vivian," Jin's voice, tight with control. "Don't say anything, just listen." The federal detention center smelled like industrial cleaner and despair. Vivian had been trying to see Jin for 3 days, 3 days of lawyers telling her to stay away, of Detective Morris appearing outside her apartment with new offers, of her own mind screaming that she should run. But here she sat, in a plastic chair bolted to the floor, staring at her reflection in the scratched plexiglass until the door on the other side opened. Jin looked different in orange scrubs, smaller somehow, though his shoulders were just as broad, the sharp edges of his face more pronounced, a bruise yellowing along his jaw. His hair fell unstyled across his forehead, but his eyes, those dark eyes that had looked up at her from the subway platform, still burned with the same intensity. He picked up the phone. She did the same. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "No greeting, no warmth. They arrested you on 17 counts. I know what they arrested me for." His voice was flat, controlled. "Which is exactly why you need to leave. Right now. Don't come back." "Jin, they're building a case, Vivian. Morris will come for you next. She'll offer you immunity, threaten you with conspiracy charges, make your life hell until you testify against me." He leaned closer to the glass. "And you should. You should take whatever deal she offers and walk away." "Is that what you want?" "What I want doesn't matter anymore." Something flickered across his face. Pain, regret, fear. "I knew this was coming. I've known for months. That's why He stopped, jaw clenching. "That's why I should never have involved you." Vivian pressed her palm flat against the plexiglass. "You didn't involve me. I chose to be involved the second I grabbed your collar on that platform." Jin stared at her hand, but didn't move to match it. "They're talking 12 years minimum, maybe more depending on what evidence they have. You understand what that means? It means you'll be 46 when you get out. It means you'll be 40, the best years of your life, gone, waiting for a man who might not even be the same person when he comes back." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "If he comes back at all. My grandmother raised me and my 3 siblings alone after my grandfather died," Vivian said quietly. "Worked 2 jobs, never complained. When I asked her how she did it, you know what she told me?" Jin finally looked up at her. She said, "Baby, we don't abandon people just because loving them gets hard." Vivian kept her hand pressed to the glass, steady and sure. "So unless you're telling me you don't want me here, I'm not going anywhere." For a long moment, Jin just stared at her. Then slowly, carefully, he raised his hand and pressed it against the glass, matching hers. His fingers were longer, his palm broader, but they aligned perfectly through the barrier. "I don't deserve you," he said, his voice breaking. "Probably not," Vivian agreed, "but you're stuck with me anyway." Vivian just chose to stand by Jin, even though it means waiting 12 years, maybe more. She pressed her hand to that glass and refused to abandon him. If that kind of loyalty moves you, if you believe some bonds are worth fighting for no matter the cost, hit that subscribe button, because the next chapter shows whether her impossible choice leads to redemption or ruin. I see so many of you watching without subscribing, and honestly, if you've followed Vivian this far through her heartbreak, you owe it to yourself to see how her story ends. Year 1 was survival. Vivian moved to a smaller apartment, took a job at a catering company that didn't care about her last name, and visited Jin every other Sunday. They spoke through scratched plexiglass, fingers pressed to opposite sides, building a relationship through phone receivers and 30-minute increments. Year 2, she started planning. Jin's lawyer delivered papers, legitimate business holdings, property deeds, accounts that had never touched dirty money. "He wants you to have these," the lawyer said. "Build something clean." So she did. Second course opened in year 3, a cramped kitchen in a church basement where Vivian taught 6 formerly incarcerated women how to make restaurant-quality food, how to build something when society said you were finished. "My fiancé is in prison," she told them on the first day. watching their faces shift from suspicion to recognition. 12 years. So, I understand about starting over when everyone's already decided who you are. Year 4 brought the first letter, where Jin's handwriting looked different, steadier, more deliberate. I'm taking business classes. Got my GED last month. The instructor said I have an aptitude for financial planning. The irony isn't lost on me. By year 5, second course had moved into a real commercial kitchen. 17 women had graduated. 3 had opened their own catering businesses. Vivian was invited to speak at a criminal justice reform conference. Year 6, Jin's letters mentioned names she recognized from his old life, but always in past tense. Told them I'm out. Officially. They weren't happy, but I have nothing left to offer them anyway. Years 7 and 8 blurred together, more women, more success stories, more speaking engagements. Vivian became that woman who waited, profiled in magazines, invited to consult on re-entry programs. She hated the attention, but used the platform anyway. Year 9, Jin called on a Tuesday instead of Sunday. I'm getting out, he said, his voice strange and unfamiliar after so long. Early release, good behavior and cooperation with authorities. They're letting me go in 3 weeks. Vivian sat down hard on her kitchen floor, phone pressed to her ear, and finally let herself cry. Vivian was waiting outside the prison gates when Jin walked through them at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in October. 9 years had carved lines around his eyes and threaded silver through his hair. He'd gone in at 34 and emerged at 43, carrying everything he owned in a clear plastic bag. He stopped 10 feet away, as if asking permission. She closed the distance and wrapped her arms around him. He smelled like institutional soap and felt thinner than she remembered. But when his arms came around her, it was the same man who'd pressed his hand to the plexiglass every other Sunday for nearly a decade. I'm here, he whispered into her hair. I'm really here. Yeah, Vivian said, her voice breaking. You really are. 6 months later, the Park William Culinary Institute opened its doors in a renovated warehouse in the revitalized part of downtown. Half restaurant, half training center, white tablecloths, and professional kitchen equipment, funded by Jin's legitimate holdings and Vivian's years of careful investment. Opening night, Vivian stood near the kitchen entrance watching Jin guide a young man named Marcus through plating a dish. Marcus had served 6 years for armed robbery. His hands shook as he arranged microgreens. Steady, Jin said quietly, demonstrating the precise angle. You've got this. Trust your training. Marcus's hands steadied. The plate was perfect. Vivian thought about that moment on the subway platform, 2:47 a.m. Fluorescent lights flickering, a stranger falling toward the tracks. She'd had a choice then, step back into safety or reach forward into the unknown. She'd reached forward, and Jin had spent 9 years reaching back toward education, toward legitimacy, toward becoming someone who could stand in a kitchen and teach redemption instead of fear. Miss William, one of their new graduates, Teresa, touched her arm. Table 6 wants to compliment the chef. Vivian smiled. Tell them both chefs will be right out. Jin caught her eye across the kitchen and smiled, the genuine one, the one his mother had seen on video calls, the one Vivian had waited 9 years to see in person again. Some debts, she'd learned, were never meant to be repaid. They were meant to be passed forward, one plate at a time, one second chance at a time, forever. And that's how a split-second decision on a subway platform at 2:47 a.m. changed 2 lives forever. Vivian reached forward when everyone else would have stepped back, and 9 years later, she and Jin are passing that same choice forward to others who need a second chance. If this story touched you, if it made you believe in redemption and love that survives the impossible, subscribe to this channel, because stories like this, about real courage and transformation, are what we're all about. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to reach for something better. And remember, some debts aren't meant to be repaid. They're meant to be paid forward, forever.